Welcome to a special edition of Pro News 7, The Gun Talk. Here's Jay Ritchie.
Good evening and welcome. It's an issue and a problem that touches all of us. Gun control, gun policy, call it what you will. Things are changing in light of recent violent gun crimes in this country, and we'll provide different perspectives on that tonight and get comments from the three people who have accepted our invitation to serve on our panel here in our studio. From left to right tonight, they are Jeff Blackburn, prominent Amarillo civil rights attorney, Natalie Schlabs, an Amarillo woman who herself was a victim of a gun crime, and David Rausch, professor of political science at West Texas A&M University. Panelists, thanks so much for being here. We look forward to your takes on these issues. One of the key gun control stories that today is President Obama saying that he's looking at actions that he can take on his own. The president can use his executive powers to tackle some gun measures. He told reporters today he'll have a plan in a couple of days. Obama says ideas that are on the table include stronger background checks and limits on high-capacity ammunition magazines. But some members of Congress won't like that. Houston area Congressman Republican Steve Stockman threatened today to file impeachment orders if the president goes that route. Panel on Facebook, Terry wrote in the question, can the president do his executive order and pass this law? What are his chances of passing such a law or any type of gun law? And David Rausch will talk to you first about this from your political background. Executive order is possible. He can do this to a certain extent. And then what are the chances that Congress will react in the same way Stockman wants to react?
Well, I don't think it's a little extreme to talk about impeachment, but Congress could, of course, come back with a less drastic measure. They could work on repealing. I still think probably the best way to move around an executive order will be through the court system. Someone gets arrested, they take it to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court decides is that executive order constitutional or not. So really, I mean, it's still up. Unfortunately, I think what the president would be doing would be shutting down any type of public debate. When in fact what we really need is more public debate about gun control.
Checks and balances would be kind of off as far as that's concerned. Natalie, in your view about going the executive order out and over Congress's head, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think it would win a lot of favor to go against Congress, and I think that's right. I think there need to be a lot more discussions about this. I think there has to be reactions and debates about what needs to change. So I definitely think it needs to be on the table for a while.
And Jeff, when this thing gets in the court after the president does his executive order, that's probably not going to bode well for him, or might it, if there's enough public outcry against these guns that are today?
Well, actually, public outcry or no, I mean, the courts are pretty clear on giving the president a lot of power in this regard. The big question I think we have to look at is just how far gone we really are from the constitutional ideals that we set out to have. And the fact that the president can even think about issuing an executive order that would do what he says this is going to do is a pretty bad sign, in my view.
What are the likelihoods, you think, the three of you, before we go to our first break, that Congress is going to pass some kind of gun control measure? I'm not saying we're going to have a new assault weapons ban or whatever, but what's the likelihood, David, that Congress will do something in this regard?
I think it's pretty good that the Senate would likely pass something, whether or not it could get through both houses of Congress, since the Republicans control the House. It really depends on what the legislation looks like. If it's a small incremental step, perhaps higher than if it's like you said, a complete assault weapons ban.
Natalie and Jeff, what do you think? Is there enough public outcry that Congress will do something this time around?
I don't know. I think, I mean, I don't know a lot about that, but I think even if it were taken back and there were less extreme measures taken, I think something I think could change, even if it were less than what they're proposing.
And Jeff?
We live in a time of legislation by fad. This is the fad that they'll do something.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are providing the questions I will ask this evening, and you can send one to us on Facebook, at KVII, on Twitter, or with the hashtag #GunTalk. Coming up, what is an assault weapon, and what is its place in this debate? The Gun Talk continues right after the break.
Welcome to a special edition of Pro News 7, The Gun Talk. Here's Jay Ritchie.
In the final press conference of President Obama's first term, he said he would push for an assault weapons ban that is, quote, meaningful. Pro News 7's Chanel Douglas takes a look back at the 1994 ban and what effect it had on our country.
There has been greater movement towards new legislation for more gun control after the school shooting that left 20 children and 6 staff members dead in Newtown, Connecticut. But has this worked before? In 1994, Congress passed a federal assault weapons ban.
It didn't do anything to reduce crime. It didn't do anything to reduce violence. We live in a dangerous world, dangerous society.
The ban was in effect from 1994 until 2004, but was not renewed by Congress. 9 years into the ban, there was 75,584 aggravated assaults throughout the state of Texas. 16,352 of them were done with firearms. In 2011, when there were no assault weapon bans, there were 63,330 total aggravated assaults, and 13,998 of them were done with firearms. But what exactly is an assault weapon?
This term assault weapons that they came up with in the 90s, you try to determine what is an assault weapon. Well, that was a liberal term created by liberals in Washington to confuse people, to intimidate people, and to scare people into thinking all these things are bad.
Assault weapon refers to various automatic and semi-automatic firearms.
A semi-automatic rifle, whether it's one that looks bad, mean, and ugly, or one that's used for hunting purposes, every time you pull the trigger, one bullet goes out. It doesn't matter if you have a 10-round capacity magazine or a 20-round capacity magazine. A trained shooter can drop the one magazine, put the other one in, and be firing and not waste 5 seconds doing it.
Violent crime statistics have been going down throughout the nation. Law enforcement suggests that gun control will not prevent future tragedies from happening.
If you've got someone determined to do wrong, you're not going to stop them unless you stop them with equal to or superior force than they're using. That's the only thing that's going to stop them.
Chanel Douglas, Pro News 7.
A panel from Facebook, Darla, talking about assault weapons, writes, where does the Constitution say that you get to carry around something that can kill a class full of kindergartners in minutes? Is that what you think the Founding Fathers intended? How did your right to tote weapons around somehow become more important than my right to send my kids to school and think they're going to be there safely? So where for you, Natalie, is the line here? Should we ban those assault weapons?
You know, I think that's an excellent question and something that has to be asked. I don't know a lot about guns, but I do think that there are certain guns and weapons, like military weapons and AK-47s and things that I think even protecting your own house or hunting and things like that, that just would never be necessary. And so I don't view that as a personal freedom that's being stripped. I think that's just logical.
Okay. Jeff, where's the line here? I mean, we're talking about what do we have to have in our house to make us think that we are being defensive? I mean, a pea shooter's too small, a grenade launcher may be too big. Where is the happy medium here?
There isn't one. The Constitution is very clear on this. It created this as an absolute right that people have, and that's got to be our starting point. Now, does it mean everybody has an absolute right to have, you know, a fully automatic 50 caliber machine gun mounted on their roof so they can pick off passersby? In my view, yeah.
And David?
Well, I mean, you can still own something but have it stored in a distant location. So, I mean, one way of getting around this would be I own it, but it's stored at the rifle range where I shoot it every now and then.
So maybe that's one of the regulations. We should make sure that people are storing it and being responsible about putting it in a place where somebody's not going to get at it. Because a lot of these crimes have happened with people who've stolen the guns,
right.
not owned the guns.
And I mean, with what you have to do with renting skis, there are specific things, you know, with what you have to do with having a library card, there are specific things. So I just wonder why wouldn't that apply to something as serious as
Jeff,
guns?
you were shaking your head.
No, we've got plenty, no offense, but we have plenty of laws, and you actually touched on this. We have plenty of laws already on the books and already well in effect that prevent people from stealing guns, from being a felon with a gun, from committing all the crimes that people commit with guns. I think the thing that we've got to do is stop our addiction to passing more and more laws to restrict more and more behavior, believing that the law itself is going to solve a problem like this when it doesn't.
Tough issue. And moving on. Coming up, as a gun owner, what exactly are your legal rights? Some answers there as the Gun Talk continues.
Welcome to a special edition of Pro News 7, The Gun Talk. Here's Jay Ritchie.
As the gun debate continues, perhaps you've wondered, where are guns allowed? Pro News 7's Andrea Flores spoke with attorneys and law enforcement officials about the laws governing gun use.
The recent gun control debate has left many questions for Texans about what their legal rights are as gun owners. For those without a controlled handgun license, the rules are simple.
A person without a handgun license can only carry their handgun in their home or premises or in their vehicle, not in plain view.
Residents with a controlled handgun license may be unclear on where they can take their handguns. We asked local attorneys and law enforcement officials to address which places are off limits.
You can't take it to a bar that sells more than half their inventory is liquor. They'll have a 51% sign outside. You can't take it to a high school, a college, or a professional sporting event unless you're participating and a gun's required for the event.
It also includes places where school sporting activities occur, such as basketball arenas or football stadiums. So that could be concerts, speech debates, something along those lines.
You can't take it to a jail, a prison, obviously, for good reasons.
Churches and hospitals are also a gray area, as there are many stipulations.
They can't carry in a church or in a hospital unless the hospital or church fails to put up a sign.
The 30-06 sign must be posted outside of a church or hospital. However, there is one exception.
A publicly owned hospital cannot post a 30-06 sign. It has to be privately owned.
The Castle Doctrine not only protects gun users that are forced to use their weapons, it also serves as a protection against civil penalties.
The Castle Doctrine says that you don't have to retreat in a situation where you're confronted with deadly force by another person. It can be an immunity defense if the other person, the person that's shot, is attacking you with intent to commit certain crimes such as rape, robbery, murder.
Gun-free zones have also long been misunderstood.
The gun-free zone is not a violation of the law to carry the weapon there. It enhances the punishment if you do commit a gun crime. A person can carry a weapon in a gun-free zone if they have a concealed handgun license. There are guns in gun-free zones in Amarillo, Texas right now, and it's not against the law because the gun-free zone application is an enhancement to punishment.
Andrea Flores, Pro News 7.
With this possible confusion about gun-free zones, people have said that people like students are sitting ducks if a crazy would happen to go in there because very few people are going to be handling guns in there. With that in mind, Sharon was wondering that Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst last week authorized or asked for funds for specialized firearms training for teachers and administrators. Some school systems are allowing their janitorial crews now to get trained and carry guns around. Wise or unwise way to go to make it more prolific to have more guns in these kinds of zones?
Well, I would definitely hate to be the police officer responding to such a situation because, I don't know, he or she wouldn't know who the, they always argue, well, the one who's been committing the crime is the one that's going to be lying on the ground, but that's not necessarily the case. It could be I don't know, some janitor who's decided to go crazy in the school and start shooting the whole school. So who's protecting whom from whom? That is one of the concerns, Natalie. If more people have guns, you don't know who the good guys and the bad guys are at one point.
Right. Or who's capable and trained. That's kind of a big thing for me. I don't have a gun in my house, and I've seriously considered it because I'm not anti-gun, and my dad has it in his house, but I don't trust myself with my roommates coming home in the middle of the night, just practically speaking, things like that. So, and I have friends that are teachers that say, I don't want to have that responsibility.
Right.
And I have several friends that are teachers that don't want that for themselves.
So as the NRA and others, Jeff, talk about more guns possibly being the answer here, more guns in the schools, good or bad?
I think it's stupid. The point is to de-escalate the violence rather than escalate it. All you're asking for is an escalation of this kind of random violence when, just like you pointed out, you wind up putting guns in the hands of janitors who I would regard, no offense to janitors anywhere, but I don't think that we should have armed schools full of armed janitors.
Okay, some viewpoints there for you to take home. Coming up in the next segment, that word militia, that's in the Second Amendment. We'll go through some possible definitions in just a moment.
Welcome to a special edition of Pro News 7, The Gun Talk. Here's Jay Ritchie.
The Second Amendment states a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. A militia can be defined in many ways. Pro News 7's Lindsay Steiner introduces us to a man who says he defines it by the Constitution.
Here are two examples of semi-automatic assault rifles. Here we have an Armalite AR-15 and a Sig Sauer 5.56.
Eric Dingus would tell you weapons don't make a militia. The commitment of the American people make a militia possible. He would say he may have a Second Amendment right to bear arms, but he has a constitutional obligation to form a militia.
Our forefathers sacrificed their lives for this country. They sacrificed their families and everything. They put everything on the line. The least that we could do as a populace is trying to carry on those traditions that our forefathers set for us and adhere to the Constitution as it is.
Dingus is steeped in constitutional philosophy. He, unsuccessfully, tried to form what he calls a constitutional militia in Potter and Randall counties. He says a constitutional militia requires official participation, but he encountered resistance.
Trying to get the local municipalities and local officials to participate and to want to take part in our meetings was the biggest hurdle to overcome. The military's designation of this would be an M4A4, which is a 16-inch, or actually 14.5-inch barrel with a permanently affixed flash hider.
Jared Baker is demonstrating a tricked-out AR-15. He runs Long Hunters on 6th, specializing in Old West firearms. But the biggest demand, he says, is for assault rifles, which are hard for small businesses to get these days after the large box stores buy them up. He agrees with Eric Dingus about the importance of a constitutional militia.
Most of the guys that are interested in forming a constitutional militia, you might say, have to have an equal playing field if they're going to be effective.
And that means having access to a wide array of weapons. He says the Second Amendment was created as a check against government oppression.
It wasn't written so that we can all go hunting. It's like a last resort check to keep power in the hands of the people.
Dingus insists a constitutional militia should not be confused with a paramilitary organization.
Because most people have in mind when they think of a militia is a bunch of old guys running around out in the woods with BDUs playing army. And that's exactly what the militia is not.
Jared Baker isn't sure people have the commitment these days to sustain a militia.
The sacrifice that would take and the dedication, I don't really know how many people there are now that could do that.
Dingus says that won't stop him from trying to form a militia.
Why can't we stand up, form the militia, and act to protect ourselves? It's common sense to me.
Lindsay Steiner, Pro News 7.
Panel, we had a whole bunch of Second Amendment questions. Shane wants to know, what's your definition of infringed? James says, since the Second Amendment doesn't mention ammunition, does the panel believe there might be more regulation leverage there? And Alan says, do you feel your Second Amendment rights are being threatened, and do you have a gun at home? Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, I hope it's not the one about the do I have a gun at home. Okay? I mean, look, here's the problem. I hate to say it, but I wind up agreeing with some of these guys. Mm-hmm. From a legal point of view, from a civil rights lawyer point of view, when we say the word militia, we're not talking about groups of hunters, and we're not talking about an official government body. What the founders of the Constitution meant, what the framers of it meant, was an armed population that was, in fact, already opposed to the existing government at that time. Again, we made the Second Amendment as a compromise to deal with two major armed insurrections against this government by the people of the United States who were very dissatisfied with the government. That's why we have the Second Amendment. That's why I think we need to keep it, because it's a guarantor of the people's right to revolt. The problem is that you wind up with guns being, a strong right like that leads to weird consequences. And you have a lot of people that are just nutty about that.
Natalie, your Second Amendment rights being infringed upon by this talk that's going on these days?
Well, my right to, well, I don't have a right to do this, but I could want to speed 90 down the highway, but there are certain restrictions because of what that could cause. And I can't buy pseudoephedrine, late at night because, not because I've, abused them, but because there are people that abuse those rights. And I work around them. And I think that there are things that could be changed that people can work around and still have their rights, but maybe have driver's license taken or different things in regard to buying guns or at gun shows. It's just too easy, I think.
And David, last word for you.
Well, the interesting thing is there are jurisdictions that are trying to require people to buy firearms. You have to have, if you're going to live in this city, you have to have a firearm. It's the same people that are arguing that the government can't require you to buy insurance. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where my Second Amendment's, if I want to be the first one shot, I should be the first one shot.
Little jolted there. Jeff, Natalie, David, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of you sending in your questions tonight. Brian James has your weather forecast right after this.
today's Storm Surge 7 Weather Almanac, brought to you by Childers Brothers Incorporated, specializing in house leveling and foundation stabilizing. The most respected and trusted name in the business, offering free, honest estimates in Amarillo and a 300-mile radius. Call today, 352-9563.
And now, the area's most accurate weather forecast with Storm Surge 7 meteorologist Brian James.
Good evening to you. We do have an upper-level disturbance making its way on through, generating a few snow showers. Take a look at the regional radar satellite combination. Just a few snow showers making their way through. Not much in terms of accumulation. The exception being eastern parts of New Mexico around Tucumcari. About 1.5 inches of light, fluffy snow, thanks to Don Best for that report. But looks like, for the most part, just some scattered flurries, light snow showers for the rest of the night tonight. Then tomorrow, it looks like most of that disturbance moves out. Another one moves in Wednesday, but there's not much moisture to work with. 4 degrees in Denver right now, 26 in Oklahoma City, 25 at the airport in Amarillo. Take a look at what happens for the rest of the night tonight. A few snow showers, otherwise a mostly cloudy sky. Temperature dropping down to 15 degrees with a northwest wind at 5 to 15 miles an hour. By the noon hour, mid-20s, most of that disturbance pushing down to the south. Thankfully, the winds will stay light, and by the afternoon, we'll top out around 32 degrees with a northwest to west wind at 5 to 15 miles an hour. For Tuesday night into Wednesday, we're looking for that another weak upper-level disturbance to move in from the northwest, generate a few more clouds, maybe a few light flurries back toward the west, but most of us will just see a few more clouds around 38 degrees for the high with a north wind at 10 to 20 miles an hour. The forecast for tonight, a few scattered light snow showers possible, especially central, southern, southwestern parts of the high plains. Temperatures tonight cold, down around 10 to 18 degrees is the range, with winds blowing lightly from the southeast around to the northwest later on tonight at 5 to 15 miles an hour. In Amarillo and Canyon for tonight, temperatures down around 14 to 15 degrees, southeast to northwest wind at 5 to 15 miles an hour. Then in the afternoon, temperatures top out in the low 30s with decreasing clouds, so a bit of sunshine coming in as we head through the afternoon. Around the area for tomorrow, looking at low to mid 30s. Another cold day. Thankfully, the winds will stay light, but as we head through the week, temperatures will work their way back up in the 40s to around 50 by Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. A little cooler maybe by early next week.
Still a little cool, but we're getting back to that normal.
We're starting to work our way back up slowly.
Sounds good. Thanks very much for joining us for the Gun Talk tonight. Our next newscast is daybreak tomorrow morning. Good night, everybody.